Okay, let's get started. First of all, announcement. We made it to the last section. We made it to the almost last week of class. A reminder that lectures are normal next week, but we do not have section. Move into what we're doing today. So I want to make sure that we close up the course by doing a little recap of the activities and resources and skill building that we've been working on during the semester. So I'll list some of those and so, just so that we can answer this question of like, okay, I was in this course, I put all this effort, like what did I get out? Or like how do these skills transfer to my resume? How do these skills transfer to internships that I could have or building a career? So I want to point you to some of those. Say we have focused on building three main skills: writing, human geography, and active study strategies. And lastly, in our last section, which was asynchronous, a lot of you participated in the production network analysis, the bonus credit. And these, I think I'm very excited about having been able to do this because it is something that is directly translated into like job skills. So like think about some of these skills that we've built throughout the semester so that you can also talk about those when you give an interview for an internship or when you choose what line of work do you like to go into? What did you enjoy doing? Um, and how does this help you, think about your professional career moving forward? And so I'll turn to you. I took note of some of the active study strategies that we use throughout the semester. Again, a course like this asks students not only to memorize concepts and definitions, but actually to analyze them, to imagine them in different scenarios, like to think creatively and to kind of like expand um, the knowledge that you're given through the materials, but actually make it your own. I'll read two more, and I think somebody unmuted and I didn't hear it, and I'm sorry, but I'll give you, if you can raise your hand, then I'll be done in a minute and then you can share. It'd be really great. Jerry,
Okay,
your turn.
I don't know. I just realized now this might not work for everybody because I write my notes by hand, like in a notebook, but something that helps me a lot is to like transcribe them again into like a Google Doc when I'm studying. So, I mean, yeah, if you already typed them up originally, maybe that wouldn't work, but to me, it like really helps to like, I don't know, have both modalities.
Okay, so now moving to is how do we think with critical geography, right? So critical geography, discourse and globalization started teaching us how to think critically about the processes that we see in the world. And we learned about a lot of the mechanisms that actually create injustice, that actually create uneven development, or that create overexploitation, superexploitation, and all these concepts that we've been working with. So recapping, human geography, critical human geography deals with why something happens and how this something happens rather than just where this thing is happening. And so it encourages to recognize the mechanisms, like how things are playing out in the real world, patterns and processes. So it encourages us, one, to think about space as something that is deliberately created, not just oftentimes when we come to a city or we come to a space, we assume that it always looked like that. But there are choices behind urban planning, transportation, accessibility, or the use of natural resources that are very deliberate that actually created this space. And then the same plays out for societal conditions such as poverty or pollution or health exposures, conflict zones, etc. Those are also produced by governance choices. And in this class, we have started to understand how these governance choices come about, um, and what kind of relationships they reinforce. And so the takeaway is that by identifying these mechanisms, we learn about how the world works, but we can also start to imagine different ways of doing things. And that's what we called otherwise. And here are a couple examples from the literature. This is from Gibson Graham, who are a couple of feminist authors in geography. And they say we can identify a problem with strong theories of neoliberal globalization. Um, and so what this does, identifying this problem in a particular way, is to make non-credible, to make like non-possible to imagine the legitimacy of other diverse economies or other diverse relationships that are already there. And what this does, so imagining the world in one single way, what this does is to close down the open futures that are waiting to be enacted. So to imagining the world or fixing the world in one particular way closes out creativity for how things could be done in a different way. And so that's the task that I want us to discuss about today. So this is what we're going to do. I'm gonna share a Padlet link, and I'm gonna make breakout room. In your breakout rooms, take about like maybe 10 minutes to discuss, choose one or two concepts from class and one case study, and try to identify conditions that you think are unjust, arbitrary, questionable, that you would want to see changed, and then comment how these are caused, but most importantly, how could you imagine that things could be done differently? Okay, this was awesome. Very thoughtful. I hope that the discussion in your groups, even though it was a little quick and violent, was really productive. It looks like it was really productive. And I'll just ask voluntarily, would somebody want to share, like unmute and share an answer to this question? What are the actors that are involved in your solution? So like if you want to think otherwise, if you want to think things differently, who would need to be in the negotiation table, maybe thinking things differently? Is it the state? Is it a company? Is it a union? Is it civil society? It would be all of those likely. So I'll read a random one from Charming Albatross. Two concepts that to me are unjust is a relationship between free trade and global supply chain. So free trade rules have allowed businesses to relocate their supply chain. We discussed about this, territorial embeddedness. While not inherently a problem, this is unjust because it relies on moving to whichever area has the cheapest labor and weakest regulations. So this creates negative incentives. And so there's the Tesla example where Tesla wanted to relocate their factory to Monterrey and avoid rising labor and regulatory costs, lower wages and increased pollution and consumption of water. Also, I would imagine a more just form of globalization that would require companies to follow environmental and labor standards regardless of where they operate, so they aren't allowed to skirt the rules like this. And so this is also an example that we discussed on Wednesday. And aside from the state or companies who have responsibility, of course, in this supply chain, there are other kind of institutions that are involved, such as like certificates for like corporate social responsibility, and there are also like some of the banks, so, like some of you that might be interested in finance, some of the banks like the World Bank even or like Citibank have their own standards for labor regulation, just so in case some of the countries that are hosting the investment do not have strong labor rules, then the banks kind of upgrade those rules for the companies to access finance from them, and also like be held to a higher standard. So there's like a lot of different actors that are involved in this. And I think the idea of thinking about this is like as you build your careers and as you take other courses, like noticing that if geography is talks about patterns that are created, there is somebody behind that creation. And so we are likely going to go into the workforce and going to work for like some of these companies, banks, or state governments, or whatever, corporations. And so it's interesting to think how things could be done otherwise. And I'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for a good semester. I hope to see you around. Count on me as a resource. Like if you want to reach out for things that have to do with the class, for things that have to do just like chat about anything else, like I'll be around. I'd love to see you again next semester. And you're feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that or anything else. And thank you. It was a pleasure to work with all of you this semester. Happy holidays.